Hi, spiritual learners. It's Steve. I hope that you're doing really well and had a wonderful weekend. We are now entering week number 3 of the session, and our learning event for week number 3 is your first reflection journal. So we're going to talk a little bit right now just about what a reflection journal is, and more importantly, give you some tips on how to put together a very effective reflection journal. So first off, reflection journals are exactly what they say. They're an opportunity for you to reflect upon your internship or shadowing experience, to process it, to look at it from different angles, to think about what you're learning and how it relates to your future, both personally and professionally. So I've laid out here on this slide just some really quick tips on how to put together or create a effective and successful reflection journal. So first off, in the upper left corner there, you see proofreading. Proofreading. That is probably the element or action that students, I don't feel, do enough of. So when I was in college many years ago, I would read my papers out loud. And as silly as that sounds, I was able to really see or hear, I guess is more important, any errors or mistakes that needed to be corrected before I submitted my paper to my professor. So proofreading is always important. Make sure you check for any spelling and grammar errors that might be present. To the upper right corner, you see there the intellectual and human dimensions of your experiential learning experience. And I think the first week I posted an announcement about the intellectual and human dimensions of your experience. So I've kind of reiterated that here a little bit. Really, your reflection journal, we want to know how you're thinking about your experience and how you're feeling about your experience, and kind of bringing it all together, kind of meshing those two together. So the intellectual is really the thinking. That's the critical thinking. And then the human element is your emotions or reactions to this experience, how it's impacting you, how it's affecting you, hopefully in a positive way. In the bottom right corner there, you see following the rubric guidelines. So this is something else that I would have to say students kind of hurt themselves with. They're not really looking at the rubric. And remember, that's how I'm going to assess your reflection journal. So you already kind of have a leg up. You know how you're going to be evaluated. So use the rubric and guidelines under module number 3 as exactly that, as a guide in developing your reflection journal. And by the way, you don't want to have your reflection journal just be a copy and paste of the discussion from week number 2. You'll notice that some of the writing prompts are very similar to our last week's discussion. Finally, there, engage in critical thinking. So this is where we kind of want you to get out of your comfort zone and really look at your internship or observational shadowing experience, practicum, whatever it might be, from multiple perspectives. So trying to have perspective, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So looking at the themes, topics, challenges, and successes, and how you might view them differently as a professional rather than a student. And then citing your sources. So always we want to cite our sources using APA format. So the online writing center does have information on that. If you have any questions about that, you can just email me and I can try to direct you to I think it's the Purdue OWL guide that we use. So make sure you properly cite any resources or sources that you're going to use in your reflection paper. So sometimes a student will bring up a theory and they won't cite it. So it's important that you cite any work that is not your own, any information in your reflection that is referring to a thought, a principle, a fact, a theory that is not your own. So with that being said, we want to make sure, I call these kind of the three biggies of effective reflection journal. So you want to have breadth, so you want to cover all of the topics in the rubric again. There are several. And for example, you don't want to just focus on successes. You want to also mention a challenge or two that you might be experiencing or that you anticipate experiencing in your internship. You want to focus on depth, so you want to dive a little bit deep. I guess depth and substance can go kind of hand in hand there. You want to dive deep into the topics. So make sure that in your reflection journal that I'll be the one who's reading it. This is just going to be between you and I as the facilitator for the class. So make sure though that whatever you're writing is understandable to a typical layperson like myself, okay? So making sure that you're spelling things out a little bit is helpful sometimes, and that's where that depth and substance can come into play. So it's kind of when you're talking about a topic, setting it up. Basically, your reflections, kind of like in a lot of ways, any research paper you write should have a compelling intro, a body, and a conclusion, kind of a wrap up. The body supports kind of your hypothesis. Your hypothesis is already written for you with the writing prompts we're giving in the rubric. So you have some questions there that can help you as you put together your reflection journal there, the what, why, and how. So again, we want to really go beyond last week's discussion and have some depth and substance to our reflection journal. So be sure to submit your reflection journal by 11:59 p.m. your time. That's not, I'm in the Eastern Standard Time zone, so you don't have to submit it by Eastern Standard Time at 11:59. So if you're on Pacific time or what have you, of course, your 11:59 p.m. is of course going to be later. So make sure that you do submit it by 11:59 so that you don't get any deduction for timeliness. So thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And please feel free to reach out to me if you have any follow-up items or questions. Have a great day.